Hello and welcome. Yes, I'm a little bit scuffling here because I need to organize a whole lot of things. But anyway, welcome to the program. This is a Conversation for Change, Conversations for Change. And I'm a man called Jay. This evening, I am talking about a situation that needs to be discussed by all means necessary. Last night, I was talking about when I made my video advertising this program. I talked about how the Western governments and Western media, they are so much biased against Africans, or they do not report all the challenges and problems that we are going through in Africa. But I discovered that was actually, it is not true. Africa has been covered um, by all international media outlets, of course, apart from the BBC. But there is BBC World, which only talks about, they are selective, they talk about things that they want to talk about, but not the mainstream BBC. Now, why? This evening, actually, I just want to repeat this again, and I want to discuss the idea of why is the West not really paying so much attention to what is going on in Africa. We know, say for example, there has been news all the time in the news. It has been Afghanistan. But as you can see here, this is the source, BBC World Service. They have reported Chad, they have reported Guinea-Bissau, they have reported Central Africa. CNN, they're doing their bit too. Al Jazeera has been at the forefront of reporting what is going on in Africa, especially in Ethiopia, as you can see. The focus today is not actually Ethiopia, but I am using Ethiopia as an example of how the Western media and Western governments actually should put an emphasis of ending these conflicts in Africa. I know we should end these conflicts by ourselves because we have got African Union, and that is another question. Probably that would be another story. We will be asking if the African Union cannot solve our problems, who do you think can? Now, I have been doing my bit. Here at AIL TV, we have done our best, and we still continue. We are going to talk about these issues as much as we can. We have discussed Ethiopia, we have discussed Mozambique, we have discussed Cameroon, Mali, Chad, Nigeria, all issues to do with Boko Haram. But now we really want to dig deep. Before I move, or before I go further, let me just play you a clip from Dominic Raab, who is the Secretary of State and the Commonwealth and the Secretary of Commonwealth Development Now, listen to this.
First of all, as I made it clear to the Ethiopian government when I was there, we need to see unfettered access for humanitarian purposes into Tigray, so we get some proper facts that we can verify, but also so we can support the vulnerable. There's a risk of famine as well as the human rights abuses that your correspondent was looking into. We've also got to galvanize the international community. So in February, when we held the presidency of the Security Council, we had the first discussion, if you like, I think that there's been on the situation in Tigray under our auspices. And of course, the aid and the humanitarian relief we provide is very important. So we're looking at this in the round. We have a long-standing relationship with Ethiopia. Probably like me, you remember growing up with the famine and the drought and all of those scenes. Ethiopia has come a long way since then. We're very worried that it will lose some of those hard-won gains. We'll do everything we can to stop that.
So when you hear the words of Dominic Raab, you actually believe that they are doing things. They care about Africa. But now the question is, if I was to ask Dominic Raab, these words you spoke, they resonate with everybody, probably even on the international stage. But what is preventing you actually going into Africa and bringing Africans together on the table so that they can discuss these things by means of dialogue? But it doesn't seem to be so. Now, as you can see, here on my left-hand screen, on left-hand side screen, I have been covering all demonstrations that goes on here in London. As you can see here, this is a Ugandan demonstration when Bobby Wine was being incarcerated, and now you can see the Sudanese coming up full force. But this is probably one of the group which succeeded in removing Bashir, because they actually demonstrate the Sudanese got together all around the world and said Bashir must go. So, and another group that I have seen which is actually doing, which is very active, it is these two groups from Ethiopia. Although they don't actually meet together, they can't, I don't know, for some reasons. I am not Ethiopian, so that I don't know what would be the solution. But I think if people from the diaspora, like us here, we could actually get together and try to influence some of the ideas, and also we let us act together to force these politicians who come and say things which probably they don't mean. Maybe they mean that, they mean good, but they don't act upon them. So when you hear Dominic Raab saying what he's saying, you believe that, okay, there is hope. These guys, they are doing something for us. So now, enough of that. As we let us move on, because now I want to go to the question: why is it that Western governments are so reluctant to go into Africa, or even send in collective force? Because it looks like the African Union might not actually act. There must be a reason there. And the reason why I'm saying this, say for example, the situation in Mozambique. In Mozambique, although we don't have the images here, but it's a very good example from Rwanda forces. They have gone into Mozambique. They have managed to disperse all the jihadists in that area. Why can't there be some kind of arrangement? Say, for example, Ethiopia could sit together with all leaders of African Union and say, hey, you know what? This has to end. You get forces from Tanzania, you get forces from Uganda, you get forces from Rwanda or even Nigeria to go and police Ethiopia. I don't think that is possible. So anyway, since that is not possible, then what is the solution? I have got another clip here from the United Nations. This clip is rather long. It is 8 minutes long. But please, I want you to sit down or be patient and watch it and listen to what this man is saying. Whether you believe his words or we just say, okay, the UN, you are just fulfilling your duty because you are meant to discuss these ideas. So here is the clip from the United Nations, and this very clip, this was only 2 days ago when they sat down in New York and talked about Ethiopia. Here we go.
I now give the floor to the representative of the United States. You have the floor, please.
Thank you, Mr. President, and let me begin by thanking those that have offered condolences to the victims of the evil and cruel terrorist act this morning at Kabul airport. It is much appreciated. And thank you, Secretary General Guterres, for your insightful and, as my Irish colleague said, however, disturbing briefing today. In our last session on Ethiopia and the situation in Tigray on July 2nd, the United States, Ireland, and the United Kingdom called for public discussion in the Council focused on protection of civilians. We called then for a negotiated ceasefire and unfettered humanitarian access, and we called more broadly for a national political dialogue that would be inclusive of all Ethiopians. Since then, no progress has been made on any of these fronts, none. As we have heard from the Secretary General, the military confrontation has escalated. The Ethiopian government has not responded positively to proposals for negotiations. Instead, it has publicly called for the mobilization of militia. The TPLF, meanwhile, has expanded its own military campaign into the Afar and Amhara regions. Ongoing TPLF military operations in these regions are displacing hundreds of thousands of civilians, and this too must stop immediately. Eritrean defense forces have re-entered Tigray, and reports indicate that military alliances among armed groups and other regions risk sparking a wider war in Ethiopia. And instead of striving to create space for negotiations and for dialogue, leaders on all sides have used inflammatory rhetoric that is increasing polarization along ethnic lines. This is all gravely concerning to all of us. These developments are eroding the unity, the sovereignty, and the territorial integrity of the Ethiopian state. The United States is particularly concerned by reports of ongoing violence in the Tigray region and other parts of northern Ethiopia, including attacks against women and children. The Ethiopian government and the TPLF, as well as associated regional militias, must end the fighting now, allow humanitarian access, and move toward a negotiated ceasefire immediately and without preconditions. Eritrean defense forces, meanwhile, must refrain from further increasing or regionalizing the conflict. Today, I would like to focus on these three concerns: the dire humanitarian situation, the need for immediate negotiations toward a sustainable ceasefire, and the withdrawal of Eritrean forces. First, contrary to its public commitments, the Ethiopian government and regional authorities continue to cut off Tigray with limited entry of humanitarian goods or personnel. This withholding of humanitarian aid, particularly food, is leading to unnecessary death and untold human suffering. Last week, after repeated warnings, aid agencies ran out of food stocks in their warehouses in Tigray. This comes after all of us were told over the last 3 months about famine conditions in Tigray. Millions are at high risk of food insecurity in northern Ethiopia, and of those, hundreds of thousands are estimated to be at risk of starvation in Tigray. The heroes that are trying to fend off this starvation, the humanitarian workers, are, as we heard, being targeted and killed simply for providing aid to those who are in need. Despite a small increase in convoys and flights entering Tigray, we estimate that just 7% of the needed humanitarian supplies were able to reach Tigray over the past month. And that statistic is based on the World Food Programme's projection of what is needed and the Ethiopian government's own reporting on how many trucks have gotten through. And let's be clear, this shortage is not because food is unavailable. It is because the Ethiopian government is still limiting humanitarian aid and personnel, including land convoys and air access. We are troubled by disturbing reports that the Ethiopian government is intentionally withholding humanitarian assistance to starving Ethiopians, and these impediments to the movement of humanitarian supplies must be removed immediately, and trucks must be allowed to enter and deliver life-saving assistance to Tigray. If these impediments continue, large numbers of people will starve to death, and many more will die from disease. This council was very clear when we passed Resolution 2417 in 2018, the denial of humanitarian access and depriving civilians of objects indispensable to their survival is a violation of international humanitarian law and can constitute a war crime. Mr. President, council members, this is happening on our watch. The impediment to the movement of humanitarian supplies is not the only humanitarian crisis in the country. We are also alarmed by reports of reprehensible attacks against Eritrean refugees. One humanitarian worker was killed by TPLF forces in Amhara region last week, and humanitarians have observed the looting of NGO offices and warehouses by the TPLF, with the supplies being taken into Tigray. This is utterly unacceptable. These humanitarians are there to save lives. They must be protected. The trajectory of this conflict over the last 10 months demands continued Security Council action. Second, Mr. President, the United States remains deeply concerned about the role of Eritrea in fueling the ongoing crisis. The presence of the Eritrean Defense Forces in Ethiopia remains a significant barrier to ceasefire negotiations and to political resolution of the conflict. The evidence is overwhelming that Eritrean Defense Forces engaged in a pattern of serious human rights abuses in Tigray. So earlier this week, the United States designated the EDF's Chief of Staff Major General, pursuant to U.S. Executive Order 13818, which builds upon and implements the Global Magnitsky Human Rights Accountability Act. To avoid additional measures from the United States, the EDF must immediately and permanently withdraw from northern Ethiopia. And this leads to my final point. With all this suffering and this instability, it is clear that the fighting and abuses by all parties to the conflict must cease. Negotiations for a ceasefire and political discussion on a way forward must commence immediately. Given this magnitude of unspeakable suffering, the Security Council has come together, and I think we are making clear to all parties to this conflict, there is no military solution. I want to reiterate the Secretary General's call today for all parties to the conflict to halt offensive, come to the table without preconditions, and negotiate a lasting ceasefire. Without the Ethiopian government and the Tigray People's Liberation Front's commitment to both unimpeded access and a negotiated ceasefire, the fighting will continue, more civilians will die. So the United States welcomes your personal engagement, Mr. Secretary General, and your leadership to initiate dialogue to a resolution of this conflict. To this end, we encourage you to work closely with the African Union and with regional and international partners with the full backing of this council. Let me conclude by saying the United States is committed to supporting the people of Ethiopia and of the wider region as they work to resolve these challenges, as they work to overcome current divisions. The ties between the United States and Ethiopia are deep and historic. There is a reason Ethiopia is the largest recipient of U.S. humanitarian and development assistance in the world. We stand with Ethiopian people. They deserve to live in peace with each other and to lead healthier, more resilient, and prosperous lives. Thank you, Mr. President.
I thank the representative of the United States for a statement.
Resilient and prosperous lives. Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay, so that was the speech 2 days ago from New York, the headquarters of United Nations. The guy is saying all the right things, but my question is very simple. How long will it take for the United States to step in either, I'm not going to say either by force or to implement the words they are talking about? The war in Ethiopia and the war in Cameroon and some other parts of Africa have been going on for years. Now, this one here in Ethiopia, it has been going on only for 2 years, but I can tell you the war itself has displaced a lot of families. Many people are dead. They are still talking about that. They're just still using words. Yeah, the war must stop, and we must do this, and we need to get them around the table. You know, people are dying, and you have already said in one of your sentences that there is no military action which is going to stop the atrocities that are taking place in Ethiopia. You are talking about the African Union. The African Union, they already know the situation. They know exactly what is going on in Ethiopia. But the unfortunate thing, it is only the authorities in the African Union know the reason why they cannot get together and help end these atrocities in Ethiopia. You cannot call on the African Union, which has actually failed in many ways. The president of South Africa, Ramaphosa, he came up with this beautiful slogan, silencing the gun. But the guns are not silent yet. And it looks like they're not going to be silent. So how do you call on the organization which has failed the entire region of Africa? If I am wrong, please correct me. Because what I don't know, maybe you guys out there, if you are there watching, or you'll be watching later on social media. Let me see who is watching. There is a lady here. Yes. Wabrayo is watching, yes. So, and who else? Ona Yusuf is watching. Now, you guys, if whoever is watching out there, if you have got a suggestion or you want to interact, because this program really is for us all. We have to interact together. You have to send in your ideas. Let us discuss them. Let us see whether we, the people here in the diaspora, we have to pressurize a person like Dominic Raab, or we have to write to the UN. Because so where else? You tell me, where will the people, Sudanese people, turn to? The people in Central Africa Republic, the Cameroonians, the people from the Horn, including the Somali, whom do they turn to solve, to get help to end these atrocities? I'm not sure whether the African Union can. It has actually, basically, we see, when you go to their website, it doesn't even show you the plans that have. But as I said earlier on in the program, that if Africa and the leaders, African leaders, wanted to end these atrocities in any region of Africa, we have got armies. Because I remember in 1979, when Idi Amin invaded Tanzania, President Julius Nyerere, he got an army together which chased Idi Amin just within weeks. And everybody thought that Idi Amin is unbeatable. But I can tell you, it is possible. The Rwandese forces, they're actually doing a very big job in Mozambique. Probably next week we will be talking about that situation itself. So what do we do? What is the solution here? Do we keep still listening to the UN, things like this? As I was saying, that I was actually of the view that the Western media is not covering the events in Africa. They are. Because if you look at France 24, Al Jazeera, Sky News here, and Reuters, AP News, all that they are actually talking about Ethiopia right now. But there is no action. Yeah? You've heard Dominic Raab actually talking words which really sound very good. And you think, yeah, these guys mean business. But I don't think they mean business. They're just talking. So the video that you have watched, or you're going to watch later on social media as we do, from the UN, how do you believe this guy? He's actually talking the right words, but the situation in Ethiopia, he knows it, that it's been going on since last year, November. Yeah, he's still talking about the African Union to get the leaders together. So all this time, where's the African Union? I am not criticizing the African Union per se. I am actually voicing my observation by asking a question. If the United Nations, they are calling on the African Union to get the African leaders together to solve the problem, when they actually know they sleep with these problems, they wake up with these problems. So it looks like the Africans are crying in the wild. They are crying in the desert. You know, I write songs, conscious songs. A couple of years ago, I wrote a song called "Crying in the Wild." So look, if you look at these guys again, I'm sure. Let me bring. You see, all these Africans that you are going to see in these videos, they are really, they are fighting on their own. They are calling on Biden. They are calling on Boris Johnson. They are calling on everybody who is in the position of authority to listen to them, to hear them, what they are talking about. But it looks like nobody hears us. You know, I haven't seen images like these ones on ITV. I haven't seen images like these ones on BBC. Even when these guys, they go and demonstrate on the doorsteps of the BBC, you will never see these images. Yes, as I have said, I'm not contradicting myself, by the way. No, but maybe let me rephrase this. Here in the UK, it looks like the UK media, especially radio, talk radio. I've been listening to LBC for many years now. In fact, LBC do not even care. A president could win an election in Africa, or a president could die, but they will not even mention I am not saying that they are obliged to, but they choose. They choose what to air. If it does not interest them, then that's it. So, anyway, I am going to go off now. And for those of you who have been watching, and for those of you who watch later, thank you. I have to thank you in advance for watching. But I have got a couple of programs that I have been working on. If you see the captions, it will come up. The captions, you will see the captions scrolling down in the shape of things to come. You will see we have got so many programs. We have got Sudan Knowledge. That will be every Wednesday. Then we have got Business Connect Africa. This is going to be very interesting because the program is going to feature a lot of business people, and we want to find out how is Africa moving, especially in these days after post-pandemic. So I have to stop here, and I must say thank you very much for being attentive. And yes, I will see you another time very soon, very soon, very soon, as we are preparing. AIL TV now must grow, and we are going to grow it together with you. You can watch later or you can watch live. That is entirely up to you. The link will be available on YouTube, so you can watch on your own time. And thank you for watching. I will see you next time. I am a man called Jay, and I'm here on AIL TV, Africans in London TV. Thank you for watching. So, until next time, it could be tomorrow, could be any other day. Thank you very much.